I belong to you. I belong to you. Do just what you want. You're the one I trust. And I always be around when I need some loving, baby. No one else. Yeah. Let you down. Let you down. Take me to your heart. I belong to you. Take me to your soul. No one
Good morning. Just trying something a little new. It's a work in progress, but I thought I'd try a little something new this morning from a countdown timer standpoint. I know you guys get tired of seeing my ugly face on the screen, so just thought I'd try something a little new this morning. It is Saturday morning, our Saturday live training. Welcome to Podcasters Live. We are here. We're excited. I hope you have your cup of coffee, your croissant. If you're over in the UK, you watch. I hope you got your cup of tea, right? My man Jamie, all those guys over there in the UK, over in the Philippines. I know you guys are rocking out, checking us out. So these Saturday morning trainings have been awesome. Our goal with these trainings is to truly provide you with information. So those of us who are of a certain age remember G.I. Joe. Not so much like the G.I. Joe movies. I'm talking about the G.I. Joe cartoons, right? One of the things they used to say is knowing. And then if you guys can finish the line, remember it says knowing. And then knowing is half the battle. Part of these Saturday morning trainings is to give you the knowing, is to give you the information. Now, then you actually have to do something with it, right? So today our conversation is around who's listening to your podcast. We are going to be talking around different statistics from the Pew Research Institute around podcasting as it relates to here in the United States, and then also with Black podcast listeners, so that we can have a better understanding of what that demographic is actually listening to, Black and Brown is listening to, and how that can actually impact your content and everything that you do. We'll be right back after this. All right, I got my man. That's I don't know, man. I don't know how long it's been since we met, but my man Corey Gumbs, who is the founder of the Black Podcasters Association, a dope organization that is here to uplift and make sure that we, one, are producing really great content as Black podcasters, but also to actually make sure that Black podcasters have a seat at the table as it relates to the podcasting industry. So I'm excited to have him here today. Please welcome Mr. Corey Gumbs. What's going on, dude?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
There you go, man. Well, here's the one thing that we're gonna get into these stats like quick, fast, and we're gonna go through them. The goal, if you are listening and you have a question as we go through some of these stats, please put it out here. That's the goal today. Is if you see a stat and you're like, well, what does that kind of mean? Or hey, what are your thoughts? Excuse me. What are your thoughts on this? Because we are not just going to give you kind of the stats. We'll give you the stats, but then we're going to give you some perspective, right? It's not just to kind of give people the stats, but it's to give people perspective. And then also, here's the other thing. If my man Corey says something I don't like and I disagree with him, then he's going to get this.
The bridge is over. Hey, hey, hey.
Here we go. There we
The
go.
bridge is over. The bridge is over. The bridge is over. The bridge is over. Hey, hey.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a strike for that, but I'm gonna edit that part out.
You snuck attack me with that because I would have set mine up to have the response to that.
I know. That's why I didn't. That's why I didn't tell you. I was like, he gonna have something. He gonna have some if she said going on. So, two New Yorkers battling for dominance over hip hop. Yo, so here we go. My man Eddie's like, ha, not the BDP. That's right. Corey, I did a little quick introduction before we get into some of the slides and the comments or whatever too. Go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself and what you're doing with the Black Podcasters Association, man.
I mean, you rap the best, but the Black Podcast Association is a online community for Black podcast creatives and professionals in the industry. The goal, like you said, is to help raise the standard of our content, to also provide support, networking, education to any and all Black podcasters, whether you're a beginner or advanced, or if you're just in the industry as a professional, like a producer, marketer, whatever. We want you here. But the goal is just to try to level the playing field, give us a voice, give us an organization that's going to advocate within the industry, in regards to diversity, inclusion, stuff like that, and just really just show the world that we have a lot of creative and talented people in this space, and they have content that doesn't typically always fit the mold or the stereotypes that we, when it comes to Black voices in entertainment and so. Just my thing is just to create a community where everybody just thrives and learns, supports each other, and it's been bigger than and great best ever expected because everybody's like family and friends, and I love it.
Thanks, man. No, and I agree, man. I know I don't know how we met, man. I don't know where we met. I know you had the Facebook group.
Yeah, it was the
Facebook
group.
It
was a Facebook 2 years ago, like
yeah,
2-3
man.
years ago.
It was like 2 years ago. He had the Facebook group, and then we just, of course, got to talking, and I fell in love with his vision, his passion for what he does, and we share. It's crazy, I know I just bust his chops with the bridges over, but we share a lot of perspective around podcasting, and so but we also disagree on a couple of things. But the goal is for us to make sure that we educate everybody that's listening today. So just want to make sure we shout out to everybody. Oh, that's a sick intro. I've never seen that before. Thank you. That's exactly what I was going for. That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I was trying to go for, man. I appreciate that. And knowing is half the battle. That's right. G.I. Joe. And we go give you guys the know, and then the battle is going to be on you guys. Not the BDP. That's right. There you go, Dominic. That's right. That's right. Shots fired. That's shots fired. If you want me, come and get me. If you think you can take me. My man, Monty Weaver is in the house. How are you doing? And there's another fellow New Yorker, Miss Lucy's a good morning from Spanish Harlem, hanging out with us this morning as well, too. All right, man. So, Corey, before we get into the stats, like, you're a stat guy. When you think about some of the, and we've already kind of talked a little bit about some of these stats, right? What's one thing that you want people, before we kind of get into the section, what's one thing you want people to kind of get out of what we're going to talk about today?
There's a lot of, especially now with all the layoffs and the things going on in the podcast industry, there's a lot of doomsday type of questions or what's going on. What does this mean? But the stats, I think people should just look at these stats from I guess, an optimistic point of view as far as listenership goes. That there's still a space for independent creators to take advantage of. In here, as long as they just figure out their niche in the right way to attract those listeners. So some of these are kind of bad or good. But I just want everybody to look at it from an approach of, these are positive things, and it's just showing you the growth of the industry, and take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree, man. So the first one is just about the United States, right? Because I speak a lot, and I think you do as well. We speak a lot about like international growth for your podcasting, but I think for any podcasters here in America, I think you need to kind of like crush it at home first, right? I think if you can figure out how to crush it at home, then we can talk about the whole international piece as well. But this stat just talks about roughly half of Americans say that they have listened to a podcast in the past year. I thought this was I thought this was interesting because this number's grown. I want to say last year, and maybe even like last year and the year before that, probably 2021, it was around the kind of the 41, 42% mark. And then I think last year it was probably around like the 44, maybe 46% mark. So it's growing, man.
COVID was good for podcasting.
Yeah,
believe it or
man.
not.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
it also had companies spending a lot of money. Everybody's riding that wave, but it was good for podcasting because, the stats before that, and I'll just go by the Edison research. I mean, was like showing you it was slowly growing, but it wasn't, to the scale of what COVID did. So I think now it's becoming more, to the point it's getting like, I see memes, it's becoming jokes and stuff like that. So that's kind of how you made it, right? So it's good to see these numbers going up. Pretty soon we'll probably it's going to gradually keep going up to the point where it's going to be, the minority is going to be, I haven't listened to a podcast.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, I think one of the things, guys, is as we go through this, Corey had some really great insight too, as we were talking about and kind of prepping for this, is that I think we always want to think about who they're asking as it relates to some of the results of this too, right? And I said that to say is because a podcast 10 years ago, the idea and the definition of a podcast 10 years ago is completely different than it is today. So when we think about this stat too, I'm going to hazard a guess, and once again, this is Steve, just my overall experience, is I'm going to hazard a guess is that when they ask this, I don't think they preface the question with like, have you listened to a podcast on your Apple iTunes or your Apple Podcast player or Spotify. I think it's just, have you listened to a podcast? And I think the world that we're living in now, right, we have video podcasts, everything's on YouTube. And if you ask more people nowadays, when they say the last time you listened to a podcast, guess what they say? They say YouTube. They don't say, you guys hear me always talking about my Pocket Cast is my favorite podcast listening app. Nobody's doing that. Only podcast people are kind of like, rocking out listening to, podcasts on a podcast player. But I think that's, just wanted to make sure you guys have a better understanding of some of that stuff as we move forward too. So cool. All right, man. Next one, man. Americans listen to podcasts to learn, for entertainment and to fill time while doing other things. This one speaks to me in the context that when you have to know how people are listening to your podcast, right? Corey and I were talking. I listen to, I don't know how many different podcasts per week. And within how I listen to a podcast, I actually listen to them differently. Some while I'm working out, some while I'm actually preparing in here in the studio, all these different aspects. And so I think it's important, right, that you actually have to kind of figure out, how people are listening to your podcast. When you saw this, man, Corey, what were some of your thoughts about this one?
I mean, I'm not surprised. I just look at my own listening habits for the past decade in podcasting. For me, it was like traveling to Manhattan on public transportation.
Yeah,
I had
yeah,
an hour and a half to just kill time. I would just download a podcast, listen to it. Um, I listen to podcasts while I'm doing my work. In the car, especially when I was driving to work, I would listen to podcasts in the car. So I'm not surprised to see this stat. I mean, it's kind of what I expected.
yeah. Yeah, I think the entertainment side, and we're going to get into some more kind of specific things too. But we do have a question, and I want to make sure a couple more comments. Question at home first. That in of itself is great advice too, right? Oh, I stole that one from myself because when I was in retail, when I was promoting people, Corey. And people always want to say, I want to get promoted, Steve. I want to get promoted. I want to do this. And I'll be like, yo, crush it at home first. Like, crush it where you are, and then we can talk about you doing other things. So I stole that one. I stole that one for myself. But the question we got is from my man, Kenneth. He said, what are your thoughts on podcasters joining podcast networks early on in the brand development process? I'm going to let Corey answer that one.
Sheesh. I mean, that's a multi-faceted answer, right? It
Yeah.
really comes down to the network, what the network provides you with support, or what it offers to the podcaster, what your goals are to try to accomplish. I think for a new podcast or someone early in the stage or building their podcast brand, definitely having something that offers support, cross promotion, the tools and the things that are going to help you to reach new audiences and grow your audience. It's going to be very important. So if it's a podcast where everybody in there is hands on, they're working with each other, they're helping each other, they're cross promoting, they're advertising, I think that's a good move. I think if you're going to go to one where it's just basically like a business model,
Yeah.
and I always look at it like I'm always going to go to my music industry side, right? The record labels, right? The artist, the artist that's going to be the famous one or the biggest sell is going to always get the priority over someone who's smaller. You got to take that into consideration as well. But I mean, a lot of networks are different. It's kind of hard to just give you a drill down answer. So I would just say if you're getting started or you're in the beginning stages or middle stages, you got to really ask questions that are going to find out how they're going to support your growth. If they even do that, if there's things in place to help with, and if the other members on the network are, open and receptive to cross promoting or promo swaps, all that stuff, feed swaps, etc.
Yeah, I would agree, man. I think the one thing that when I left podcasting in 2012 and I came back, one of the things that struck me the most was after years in the business world, like understanding and seeing the competitive nature of people and being a competitive person myself, I came into back into podcasting with a healthy degree of skepticism around, people aren't going to want to help. People aren't going to want to share, right? They're not going to want to give you, some of the secrets of the trade and all these other things. And I was grossly wrong and incorrect about it. I found a community of people who gave, right? Who were like, hey, cut it up this way, Steve. Hey, think about it in this context. And so the overall arching, I think, community of podcasting is very helpful. You do have some of those people, like Corey said, that are super business minded and trying and I get it. Podcasting is becoming a business, and I can understand how they're trying to go after it. But if you are in the process of growing your brand development, some of that stuff you may have to kind of find out on your own. You can even get information as much as you want. Some of the stuff you just may have to kind of dig in and figure out making sure what it is that you want to stand for. But some of the networks are actually doing really well, and they're providing a lot of context and a lot of information to kind of help you on. I don't know if we answered your question or not, because Corey and I we have our own perspective on several things as well. What's going on in the trading? How are you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to see you here. And then Matt says many industries that saw saw a boom during COVID, are seeing recessions, right, of that boom now. What do you think is podcasting, its ability to retain in the boom in listeners and continue growing? Man, yo, go ahead. Go ahead, Corey. You're the guest. I'm going to let you go first.
Thank you. I'm being mindful because I don't want to hear that BDP come out of nowhere on me. But I think to answer this question, I mean, we're like what we saw in podcasting now, what's going on. We actually saw happen in the early 2000s with the web, right? Remember the internet boom, right? It was all
Right.
this money coming in, all this spending, everything spending, and then when things started to go south, they started doing all the layoffs. Companies were going under, so forth and so on. So, podcasting is not immune to the same cycles that other industries go through when money is involved.
Right.
I think the one thing I always liked about love about podcasting, and I think is the draw for a lot of people is that there's not a lot of gatekeeping, right? And I think this what we're going to show is going to show why to answer that question of how's its ability to retain education, entertainment. People go to podcasts to learn things. So you can't, as long as humans want to keep learning stuff or knowing about stuff, never be able to stop that. And the beauty of it is that, let's say if all the hosting services were to go under, I can always go to spin up my own server, put up my own website, and still be able to push out my own podcast. So I think that's the real ability to retain its listeners and continue growing, is that the independent podcasters are going to be the foundation of keeping the podcast industry afloat.
Yeah, man. Starting in 2007, right? It probably podcasting for me for 2007. I think it started like 2004 was the first official like use of the word podcast, if I'm not mistaken. So the podcast has deep roots, period, right? And so I think anything that that has deep roots, right? It doesn't matter how things get swayed and come and go to and fro. It's gonna stand the test of time. Podcast isn't going anywhere, and I think it's because of those deep roots. Before everybody and their mama found it in 2020, right? 2019. It's like, what is this podcasting thing, right? Dude, people were doing it for years. So the roots and the core aspects and I say ethos of podcasting was already established in the context that, I want to have these conversations with people, and I want to put it out there where people can actually download it. Now, that just because everybody else found it, some of the people have staying power, some people don't. But I think podcasting in and of itself has some deep-rooted, some deep roots, and that's why it's not going anywhere, Matthew. Great question. I appreciate that. And Sherry, yes, I am a hardcore YouTube podcast listener. Yes, you are. And hey, how are you doing? How are you doing today? She says, good morning. Good morning to you as well.
Morning.
And then Robert says, hello. How are you doing, Robert? Good to see you. Robert has a question as well. YouTube is launched in podcast programs. What are your thoughts on video podcast? Yo. Okay. I'm going to preface this. This answer by both of us, because I know we're Corey. We are we are both audio first, like, thought process when it comes to podcasting. Like, right? So maybe that's why you know that. Maybe that's why you're asking this question. So we're audio, like, first, and maybe later in the show I'll have Corey break down the whole intimacy and listening piece, because he's done some serious homework on that. So I'm okay with the video podcasting. I'll answer first, Corey, and since I'm already talking, man, I'm going to answer this first. I'm okay with the video podcasting, right? Because one of the reasons we started Podcasters Live was around discoverability, right? Listening to, I don't know how many different podcasters talk about, I want more people to hear my podcast, and I'm only getting this number of downloads, and I'm only this. Well, nobody really knows you. So when I stumbled upon live streaming a while ago, I realized that live streaming was a really good opportunity for people to get to learn who you are, discover your podcast, and then possibly start listening on the other platform, right? I know switching costs and all that stuff, but discoverability was the biggest piece. And now you add the video component on there too. You're able to actually, create another piece of content, So I'm fine with people actually doing video podcasting. Especially here's my little caveat. Especially if you're just starting out. If you are like, you know what, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. I'm not too sure about the audio piece, but I want to do video. Then go ahead and do it. Right? Go ahead and start there. Right? Because the barriers of entry for both audio and video are super low nowadays. You can go ahead and get started, with your phone and whatever it is that you need to do. But I know we have some other thoughts around video podcasting from my man Corey, so I'm gonna let him go ahead and say what he got to say.
You might as well play the BDP.
What?
That's it. The bridge is over. The bridge is over.
Get it over with.
The bridge is over. Hey, hey.
This is preempted. I'm just gonna preempt it. So like you said, Steve, I'm always go audio first. I'm an audio. I call myself a podcast purist. Podcasting
Same here.
is exactly what it is. It's an audio format. Video. If you add video, you're just having a talk show. It's the same thing you see on regular TV. I'm sorry, you get in the comments, say what you got to say, but truth, that's what it is. But I've learned to embrace the video aspect of this side of the industry because it is necessary. We live in an interesting time because we're seeing the joining of the two as far as content creation goes. Before,
Agreed.
Growing up,
Agreed.
it was, you watch TV when you're home and you listen to the radio wherever, right? Now, since we have these devices where we access video and audio content together at any time, anywhere, it's meshing. So I will say, even though I'm audio first, you should have some kind of video component, or you should at least have your podcast on YouTube, right? That one I will say. But the whole debate about video podcasts, I still haven't come over to the dark side yet because I'm like, it just reminds me of like the old talk shows that used to come on TV when I was growing up. It's just you're just doing it from your home now. That's it. But that's not what this conversation is about.
That's it. But no, man, I think.
Sorry, Steve. Let me ask you.
No, go ahead.
The only issue I have with video podcasts is that it takes people's attention. Like I have to focus on a lot of times, unlike Cher, where she listens to a podcast, all day long, and you got to train your brain. But if a video is on, I'm going to stop to watch it. Where when we talk about earlier, listening to a podcast, I can do other things. I'm cleaning my house. I don't have to stop to watch it. And I try to do the YouTube podcast thing. It distracts me. So you got to know, you got to know who your audience is. You got to know who you are as a person, and pick the format that best suits you. So you should have both.
Agreed. And then the one thing, because we talked about this yesterday. Just so Robert, thank you for you poked the bear with this one for both of us. But we spoke about this yesterday. But here's the thing, and I speak about it in the context of bandwidth, right? So, because when you do a video podcast, just like I said earlier, like crush it at home first, crush it where you are, and making sure that you have content that people want to actually listen to, and the ability to do a video podcast. I honestly feel I was listening. Here's what I'm going to explain my point. I was listening to Samira and Colin. They're YouTubers who actually have a podcast, and they were talking about this very thing too yesterday. And I was listening to the video podcast in my in my garage, and they were talking about the context of like when they do audio podcasting, they said they feel more free when they're talking about when it's just audio. They just feel like they're freer, like to just have a dialogue. And they said when the video piece comes on, there's almost this kind of change in what they feel like they have to say, and that they almost kind of pull back a little bit because the video and the camera may come off differently. And man, I was just in my garage like amen. And because I think people don't understand that dynamic is that when you have an audio podcast, there is a more sense of freedom that you can actually you should feel like that you can have. But when you're in front of that camera, I honestly feel people get this. There's a different level of expectation that people want, right? Audio first, even with the video, and then if you're on video, man, you might as well look good, right? So anyway, all right, Robert got us started, man. Robert got us started. See, go ahead.
I just want what you just said. I can hide. I can't hide with a camera. If I got to pick my nose in the camera, you're gonna to see it, right? Especially
Yeah.
if it's a live stream, right? So, there are people who, it took me a long time to get comfortable being in front of a camera, right? There are people who don't like want to be in front of a camera. So I that's why I say you got to know who you are and
Yeah.
go with what you're comfortable with first, and then if you want to get into the video, work your way towards that, because doing live streams in the Facebook group was what got me comfortable with talking on the camera and not being worried about how I look and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember those conversations, man, we used to have too. Look
Yeah.
at you now, man. Look at
Yeah,
look at
right.
look at 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 Corey now. All right, man. Y'all keep asking questions. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm loving the engagement. I'm loving the engagement. Is it possible that video may be maybe better for some genres than others? Same thing for audio only. That's a great question, Dominic. Go ahead, Corey.
That is I never really thought about it. There goes Dominic just coming in and throwing a wrench in the game.
You know what I'm
But
saying?
I think there might be. I think it is. I haven't really thought about this, so I don't know if I have a good answer. But just talking about it now, thinking about it, I'm like, there might be some because some topics you can explain better with a visual component,
Right.
right? I'm gonna go my science stuff, right? Like if I'm trying to explain physics to you, it's better for me to show you a visual aid to help you
Mhm.
understand the concepts versus me explaining it to you. If I'm explaining it in an audio format, it's typically the audience is going to be people who are already in that space or understand it. So I can talk about it without having to show you. So I think there are topics and there are genres out there that would do better with a video component than an audio, and vice versa.
Yeah. I think about in the context of storytelling, right? Storytelling is a massive part of course, any podcast, whether you're audio or video. I know that one genre that really works well and probably will continue to work well in audio only is going to be like true crime, right? It's that narrative storytelling around something that I'm not going to explain what a true crime is. You guys get it, like Serial, right? So a lot of people also jumped in on the podcast when they heard Serial, right? That one was super dope, and that opened up the eyes to people from a podcasting standpoint. Now there are probably some genres that probably maybe could probably be video only. But here's the other thing too, and we talk about this, and we've adopted this mindset with Podcasters Live. The idea of a podcast, as we define it, it's a produced conversation, period, right? It's not what we have struggled with for years is around the delivery method of that produced conversation, right? I just did a live podcast the other day, and I talked about RSS feeds, and I talked about the RSS feed as a suitcase for your content that goes out there, and then people can download your suitcase of content whenever they want. But it's a highly strategic and targeted piece of content. An RSS feed is too. So that's exactly what back in the day what a podcast was defined to be. But I while the RSS feed is important, I feel that the content that's inside of that RSS feed is more important than the actual delivery method. If you track it with me, say you track it with me, hopefully you understand what I'm talking about, because it's the content piece. So we have to get away from the idea of the delivery method, video, audio, and understand that the produced conversation is probably the most important thing that we need to make sure that we're having as well too. All right, man, y'all got us going. Y'all got the wrong ones today. I'm just saying. No, I'm loving this.
Yo, Steve, real quick,
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. So we got to, you said the storytelling part. You got to remember too, like the audio allows the person to use their imagination as well.
Yes.
Right. That's why the true crime. When you add the sound design and all that. I always say podcasting is what the radio used to be before the TV was invented. Right. It was a big experience. You got to use your imagination. You got the color commentary, people describing things. Also, we have to understand podcasting. You have those people who've been doing it for a long time and saying, if it doesn't have an RSS feed, it's not a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like any other industry, it's going to evolve and it's going to grow and it's going to change as the technology changes, as the people who come into it change, as the needs change. So, what the car was in the early 1900s to what a car is now is completely different.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
just have to understand that it's going to change and it's going to continue to evolve, and the definition is going to also continue to change.
100%. 100%. She was talking about, she was intimidated by the RSS feed and other perceived barriers. So that's why the listening to video podcasts. That's why she's kind of switched into that mode. Video podcasting such grew when I got YouTube Premium.
Oh,
Yeah,
I-
she,
listen,
that was
without that, man, listen, I don't know how people do it anymore.
so Corey, I'll go play this for myself.
I said, the
I'm
bridges.
gonna play that for myself because I was not a YouTube Premium dude. I was like a regular degular, YouTube guy. And Sharon and I were having this conversation like last year, and we're talking about like YouTube, and I was like, oh, these commercials. She's like, what? What are you doing? I was like, oh, I got I'm watching YouTube. She's like, with commercials? I was like, yes, yeah. I was like, yeah. She was like, oh no. I don't even know if I could talk to you. I don't even know if I could talk to you anymore. No, you need to get YouTube Premium. And I signed up for YouTube Premium. Dude, changed my
I hate
life.
when I'm on the wrong account. I hate when I'm on the wrong account. Sometimes I have like 4 different YouTube, Gmail accounts. So sometimes I'm on the wrong one. And when those ads come on, I'm like, I lose my mind, man.
It's like, yeah, that was life changing. The only talk shows I saw growing up were Jerry Springer, rest in peace. Maury, Oprah, myself. See, I'm old. I remember the OG Douglas. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his the last name was Douglas. I can't remember. I'm old, man, but that's how old I am. But I remember. Was it Phil Douglas? No, Phil Donahue.
Donahue, yeah,
Phil Donahue. So, and Larry King. I was only into listening to radio. I guess that's why. And there you go. I hear you, man. I hear you. Thank you, Robert. Flex its share, YouTube Premium. Yes. All right. Cool, man. So we gotta get back into some of these stats, man, because you guys got us going. About a third of podcast listeners have tried a lifestyle. We should have stayed this one for last. This is a dope one, right? This is gonna be some conversation right here on this one right here. About a third of podcast listeners have tried a lifestyle change because of a podcast they listen to. Watch the movie, follow social media. Made or tried a lifestyle change, right? I hope you guys are understanding the impact that you have on people when you step behind this mic or step in front of the video. Man, Corey, what were your thoughts when we were kind of going through this, man? You had some really good perspective on this.
I'm gonna keep it real with you. I think this is probably one of the most important stats that
100%. 100%.
I can tell you. So it's important because it just shows you the influence podcasters have, like, that intimate connection, that influence they have over their listeners, and how and the power you have from a brand perspective, to influence and to help people to find things they may never knew about, to help build products, to help build services. But when I saw this, I was like, this is what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put together my little project that I'm working on, and I was like, how do I convey to some of these brands why they need to have a podcast? And this is it. From a sponsorship point of view, if you're looking for advertisers, this is how you flex. Like, you can use this stat and be like, listen, we're, as podcasters, we're moving people. I can make or break your product. I hate to say it that way, but I can,
right.
I think that's why you see a lot of like brands, like, especially TV shows have podcasts that supplement their shows and stuff like that as well, to help introduce people and influence them, like color, like if you the DVD space, right?
Right.
I used to listen to commentary about movies and stuff, so I think that's kind of the same principle. But I like this stat. I love it. I'm like, this is going to probably print it out, put it up on my wall as a reminder. When I talk to people about that you have people listening to you and they're trying new things, they're trying stuff, they're going out and doing things based off of what you said or your impression of something, or the fact that you may not like something.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
this shows how much power podcasters have.
Keep talking, man. I'm looking for the link. Because Robert was asking for the link, and I want to put it in the notes, right? So keep talking, man, while I'm scrolling.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, like watch the movie, read a book, or listen to music. That's big. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I listen to a lot of when I'm working. I got to listen to music, so I listen to music podcasts. I have a couple people who I really love their music. One of my favorite podcasts shut down last year, but it introduced me to new artists, and I was like, and I like this song, so I would Shazam it and put it on my playlist and stuff like that. So I knew this was true, but I just didn't realize it because I was doing it.
Right.
But social media accounts. We recently heard that with the Edison research that and you can play the BDP because I was completely wrong, and I publicly say I was wrong. That we found out that a lot of people found, especially in the Black podcasting space, they found podcasts through social media. So, the fact that you can build your social media platform and influence that as well through your podcast is great, and I think that's where that comes from. But made a lifestyle change, brought something promoted, talked about like all of these things. When people are talking about how do I get sponsors, this is the gem that you need to add to your pitch.
Yeah, man.
To show people like, hey, this is the influence we have.
Agreed, man. Robert, I put the link in there. This is from the Pew Research Institute. Edison does some great research as well. One of the companies, they have a podcast too that Corey and I listen to a lot, called Sounds Profitable. They are a strictly research based podcast, so they do just tons of different surveys and statistical analysis of the podcast industry. So that's another really good one to I would say subscribe to and listen to. They have a newsletter that comes out too. So one of the things that we want to make sure that is that people kind of get some of this information that's out there, because not a lot of people either even listen to this information or read it. Like Corey and I are constantly like sending stuff out. He's like, dude, I was just about to send that to you. Like we're sharing like stats and information. And I think that's how we grow, as a podcast, as podcasters as well too. Let me see. And then yeah, man, you're 100% right. Podcasts are influencers. I want to make sure we get on the comments because I want to go back to this one and kind of talk about it for a sec. 100% true. I watched K-dramas, watch movies, and attended festivals and things like that growing up. I'm telling you right now, it's extremely important that we understand the level of influence that we have as a podcaster, on our community. But here's the thing. People do stuff if they resonate with what you're saying. So I when I looked at this, my initial thought was that people are doing stuff because they resonate with whoever it is that's putting it out there. So if you are just putting stuff out there, that doesn't necessarily mean that people are doing something based off of what you say, right? I think there's another layer to this. I think it's people are doing stuff. They're watching a book. They're following somebody on social media because they resonate with what you're saying. It's not just because you're out there and you're podcasting and you're live streaming that people are going to do what you say, right? I love MKBHD. Sharon don't like him, but I like him on YouTube. He just came out with his whole brand new sneaker. Love him, but I ain't buying that sneaker. I'm not that big of a fan. He can't influence me that much. I like what he does, but he can't influence me that much. So you have to understand that this stuff is based off of the fact that people are resonating with what you're saying, and they're going to take action based on that too. So making sure that you have your right audience first and foremost, I think is extremely important as well. So I didn't want to gloss that point over too. That I didn't want people to think just because they podcast and people gonna do something, don't work like that. It don't work like that.
Yeah, podcasting is, it's an intimate it's a level of intimacy that takes time to develop. You're creating a relationship. So, you know, the people who are gonna who this probably really are answer these questions are fans of those podcasts. They've been around for a while.
Yeah.
They've gone and they've listened to, they've listened consistently. Don't, as a podcaster, just because you see this doesn't mean, hey, people are gonna come listen to my podcast and immediately go watch a movie just because you recommended it. They're gonna,
Yeah.
um unless they're very niche, like myself, like I'm a movie buff, right? So if I stumble on a podcast that talks about something about a movie, I might go and, they might influence me to go check it because that's just how I am, right? But you don't take this data and be like, oh, I'm gonna go to these brands and be like, I got a podcast, and this says that you understand this you're building relationships, and that's what I love about podcasting as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I might even just do a hot take and say that's why podcasters a lot of times are probably the true influencers in the industry versus
Mm.
they call it a influencer just because they have a lot of followings on TikTok or something like that.
Ooh, I can't even play the BDP on that one, man. That's a good one, man. I gotta. Yeah. I need to play some Nas on that one or something. Like that's a good one. Like, made you look or something. I should have had. That's what I'm gonna have next time. I'm gonna have the instrumental for that one. But that's a whole nother topic, man. That's a whole nother topic, man. With the whole influencer thing. Okay, all right. Most listeners get their news on podcasts expected to be mostly accurate. This one, this one, I don't know. I didn't know what to think about this one when I put it up here and we were talking about it. My issue is because that a lot of people get their stuff, and I get it. A lot of people get their stuff from, Facebook and all these different, social media and all these other places too, right? Even certain news channels, of course, can be skewed, right? But at the end of the day, that may not even matter. Most people are still looking at podcasts to get their news. So I guess it doesn't matter the rightness or wrongness of the information. People are utilizing podcasts as a tool to get their information. Do you agree with that?
This one for me is an area of concern. As you know, I always talk about, like last year, we had a thing about defamation and liable, libel and stuff like that. We had a couple of ups on that in the BPA, and I remember I started a conversation asking our podcast journalists, right? And I got a lot of pushback. People saying they're not, but here we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of the political climate and during COVID with the whole thing with fake news and the media, and I think people finally, the world slowed down with COVID, so people got a chance to really sit down and realize what's going on around them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as we saw what happened with Fox recently,
Yeah.
we see that these news media companies are, they're products. They have advertisers. They have what's the word, initiatives or whatever that they're trying to, narratives that they're trying to put out. And I think with the Trump presidency, people just became, on both sides of wherever you stand, a lot of people just became like, I'm done, enough of this, and it pushed a lot of people to podcasting. The reason why this is dangerous to me is because podcasting can create echo chambers.
Yes.
And where they say here 87% said mostly accurate. Again, my question to them would be like, did you ask them, well, do you question where they verified their sources from? Are they, what's the process that the podcast is using to give you this news? How are they vetting their information? So this is good, but it's also bad. It's like I'm like, it's, for me, raises a red flag because I'm just, me as a person, I'm like, where are you vetting your information from?
Yeah. Just
but it shows also it's reflective of
Agreed.
how we see the news media, the popular news media, and how people are searching for content, whether it's to hear a different perspective or to confirm their perspective. And that's why I say we as podcasters always have to be responsible to the content we put out, because you can create a real strong echo chamber. And I'm not going to jump the gun, but I know the next couple slides I'll talk about that too.
Yeah. No. And I think that just goes into what we just spoke about. I assume we have some comments in there. I'm going to get to you guys here in a sec too. But yeah, and this one, and you can go. You guys know we don't really talk about politics here on any of my shows. But I did want to bring this one up here. No large difference between Republicans and Democrats in podcasts listening, hearing news on podcasts. I wanted to include this one in here because it correlates with the one that we just kind of spoke about around news and where people are actually kind of getting their news from, and not so much. We wanted to put it on here, not so much as a promoting the ideas of one, right or the left. It's promoting the idea that podcasts are being used, good, bad, or indifferent, to disseminate information, to people. So, I want to put this comment up here though, but by Dominic though, he's 100% correct. He says there's a responsibility, that comes with I got you, man. That comes with this mic. It's not all fun and games. 100% agree with that. So I just wanted to put that one up there too, before we kind of move forward too. So then this not the last one. We got a few more too. Just over half of listeners say that the podcast they listen to includes some political opinions, at least sometimes. So wanted once again put this information up here to show you that when you are creating your podcast, when you are disseminating information and your thoughts, it is a powerful vehicle, because we kind of set it up earlier, right? We spoke about podcasts. People are making decisions based on listening to you, right? They're making life decisions based on listening to what you say. Here's some of the kind of byproduct of that, whether it's a political standpoint or news or whatever. People are listening to you, so understand that with great power comes great responsibility. There you go. I don't know what movie that. Corey, what movie is that one from, man?
Which movie? What you
I
talking
don't
about?
know. I said with great power comes.
You talking about Spider-Man?
Boom. Come on, man.
Uncle Ben.
I was about to BDP you.
Yo, go back real quick though. We also have to understand. We as podcast, we like to always tell people you need to niche down, right? Audience. You got to also understand when you're finding your audience, right? That means people are listening. They're going to connect with you because you're talking of interest to them, right? That they want. So we have to be responsible. We have to be on that power, like you said, with that power. If I'm looking to how to learn how to, carpentry, right? I'm not, that person's going to have more of an influence over me because I'm looking specifically. I do programming. When I'm on YouTube, I'm looking for the right video to help me with a problem or learn something.
Yeah.
And then I have those core people that I follow. So, I think the statistic is that we have to understand that, yeah, you're going to have a lot more people that are going to be in line with your views because they're looking for your views. Or you guys have similar views that they're in. I think that's I wanted to talk about that real quick. Podcasting definitely echo chambers. The only difference I have, the only difference between podcasting echo chambers and what you see with the media echo chambers is that, we're starting to see it happen a lot more now, but is that there's no oversight in the podcasting space, right?
Yeah.
Fox News just got sued for defamation. They just lost that case and they got another case pending, right? People lose their jobs, they get called out over it. And you mentioned Sounds Profitable, and I went to one of their events last year on brand safety, and I remember I came back and I was saying I think a lot of podcasters are talking themselves out of potential sponsorship opportunities,
100%.
advertising opportunities. So because there is no real oversight, so people have to be a little bit more cautious on who they align themselves with. And that's the danger. That goes back to the danger I was saying of like the news part. There's no oversight. We're starting to see more celebrities suing some of the bigger podcasters or content creators out there for defamation and libel. So I predict over the next couple of years, and then with the AI stuff, you're going to start seeing a lot more case law coming in that's going to force the industry itself to provide oversight for the content and producers. But right now, there's
100%.
not. I can go start a news podcast and say all kind of crazy stuff, get a big audience, and what's going to happen to me?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why you see a lot of like Tucker Carlson. He's about to kill the podcast game.
Yeah, man. Whether you like him or not.
Whether you like him or not, because now you just, and that was the thing where I had with the censorship portion. You sent Alex Jones underground. You sent a lot of these different people underground, and their followings are now even stronger and bigger than what they were when you let them run free.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
This is the dangers.
The gloves are seriously off. Like, you can say, we say this all the time. It's your podcast. Like, no one has to greenlight your stuff. You can say whatever it is that you want to say, and so now you just unleash the beast. And I don't like to say stuff, especially like talking about a study or a company. And I can't remember their name, but I will try my best to put it in the maybe in the show notes. But to further your point around people saying whatever it is they want to say on the podcast. There's a company now that is actually creating, it's almost like, how everybody's, talking about the blue checks, for IG and Facebook and things like that. They're kind of doing something very similar to, for podcasters, because as a podcaster, yes, I can say whatever it is I want to say on this microphone on my podcast. But what if I have an IG account and I'm spewing all types of hate speech on my IG account? But over here on my podcast, I'm all nicey, right? So there are companies that are actually vetting podcasters across all social media platforms so that they can present them to advertisers, right? So you have to understand that piece too. So you can say whatever it is that you want to say, maybe here, but if you across all the platforms, if you're not consistent, then we're starting to get into that age where advertisers, they don't want to be blindsided by something, right? That's what happened with some of the stuff with CNN and Fox News. People were getting blindsided by potential things that were going to be coming out, and that's why they made some of these decisions that they made.
Like the Netflix series Beef, right? Look what happened with them with a podcast that happened 5, 10, 8 years ago or something like that. Statements that were made back then.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're going to see a lot more vetting and stuff like that happening, which is, I think.
Yeah, man. People see journalism degree as a professional designation to call yourself a journalist, even though it's not. The similar attitude that a real podcast needs an RSS feed. That's not true either, right? So she's just saying that. Americans on average don't realize our impact on the world. So when you have podcasts spinning, hot garbage without any checks, we are literally leading to life-destroying scenarios and behaviors, right? Yeah, I mean, just like Dominic said earlier, you got to have a responsibility, for what it is that you put out there. And then just want to make sure I want to get everybody's stuff up here too, because you guys are doing some amazing stuff in the comments, and I appreciate it. It comes down to the individual. There should be dual accountability. Podcasters must be responsible, in the info that they put out, and listeners should do 100% do some due diligence. I listen to things I like, as well as some things that challenge my thinking in order to find balance. When I first lived here in Atlanta, there was a guy on the radio station, and I talk about him. I used to talk about him all the time back in the day. His name was Neil Bortz. He was, and please just understand what I'm going to say. He was a libertarian guy, but he would speak with such conviction about some of the things that he talked about, but things that he was saying was just like super smart, and they were just common sense. Like, dude, oh my gosh. But what he would always say, and I did it each and every time. He's like, if you don't believe what I'm saying, check the sources out. Check my sources. Check this, check that. And then over time, what you would see was that what he was saying was lining up with sources. So to Robert's point, I just wanted to kind of extend Robert's point around, we do as a listener have responsibility. So you just can't take in whatever it is that you want to take in. You actually have to make sure that, the person that's speaking, that the information that they're providing is valuable. So as well, I don't know if you had something to say on that one or not, Corey. Nah.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the responsibility being on the listener. We just
You
saw
know?
that they listen to entertainment, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you talk about. I don't know Neil Bortz, but I know Rush Limbaugh. Like all of these, like
Yeah.
even like I
Yeah.
was watching the video Daily Show did on Tucker Carlson. They showed you that like how he went from here to there. A
Yes.
lot of people put on acts specifically for the audience that they're targeted. So it's hard. The audience has to vet the person and look up the sources, because that, like even what Neil Bortz was doing is also part of what I call my playbook that I've learned. I've been in a lot of these different spaces, so
Yeah. Yeah.
play it's like check the sources if you don't believe me, and then
Yeah.
people go,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
you the sources that prove my point. I like when I do research, I always look for the scientific method. I want to find the opposite, and then in there, because I read a lot of history, so I'm always like, I used to tell in the Black conscious community, I was like, you need to go read the white people, the books written by white people, because when you start
Mm.
doing it, you realize they're going at each other's throats, they're conflicting information, and then from there you try to find, you try to find the commonalities and say, okay, since this is where they both kind of agree, so this must be
Mm.
true.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. Right.
It's a constant research, but to put it on the listener, you know, I don't, I don't, because I watch what goes on with CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all these different medias. They're there for those particular types of people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's this whole nother conversation, but I think the responsibility falls on us, and with whatever your intention is, there's consequences for it at the end of the day,
Yeah.
whether it's good or bad. When you get that cease and desist or you get that lawsuit, you should be expecting
That's a whole nother.
like
Yeah. That's a
certain
whole
type of
nother.
content. So
We were
that's
talking
all.
about this. We were talking about this, yesterday, right? And I was, I was, and Corey and I, we watch a whole bunch of movies, and we find ourselves quoting different movies. I love Sherlock Holmes, and it was the first one with Robert Downey Jr. One of the scenes he was talking about in the movie was around how people they theorize something, and then they get the facts to help their theory. And he's like, no, you can't do that. You need to get the data first, get the accumulation of data, and the data will help you create a theory, right? Or a perspective. And I think the tendencies, Robert, sometimes when we start to think about like listenership, is that we will gravitate to people who actually will help move our already embedded perspective forward. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not knocking that in any way, but I think part of that piece is the idea that people will tend to lean towards people that may think like them or may share some of their ideas. So to your point earlier, it does take a discipline, if you will, to listen to things that are contrary to probably your inner belief that may help you kind of from a balance standpoint as well too. So I appreciate that comment, man.
And I just want to say,
Yeah,
like Robert,
go ahead.
I was upset when they took Alex Jones off of YouTube, because that was, for me, it was like I would always go back and watch. I always wanted to know what the other side was thinking, and who was because he had such influence. I wanted to always know, like, listen to what he was saying. So I always had my counter, or I could always do my research before, because I have friends that are into that stuff, and they always come, because they know how I am, they would call me up. So I was always like, let me sharpen my sword. Let me make sure I have the ammo in the belt. And when they did that, what I didn't want to do was go to his website. Like, I'll go on YouTube,
right.
but I didn't want to go to his website and then give him, give that person the stuff that they need to continue to do their business. So now I don't go there. I don't pay attention. When somebody sends me something, I might watch it or listen to it, but I'm not actively. So that I don't want Robert think I'm like, one of my point was, but
Yeah.
not everybody's like that. We have to
Right.
be careful when we say that. When we think of it in a perspective that sometimes I've learned over these years, not everybody's like me or thinks like me. So I can't expect that from them.
Really? No, people don't think like you, Corey? Everybody don't think like you?
This is not my channel, so
Everybody, hold on a second.
The bridge is over. Bye-bye. The bridge is over. The
you
bridge
know what
is
I
over.
meant, man. There's no reason to say that. I thought before we got on, I was like, he's the troll king, yo. He's like a little Jedi, like, he's like Obi-Wan, like, these are not the droids you're looking for, but he does it on trolling, real subtle. I love it.
Oh, I was thinking about that. I literally just thinking about it this morning, and I was like, oh, I got it. Like, yo, if you don't say something I like, I'll just, it doesn't matter if you don't say something I like. That's not the point. It was just like I got to do something because we're both
You just
hip
gotta get me,
hip hop heads, and we could go all day about it. So anyway, all right. So here's a say what? Say what?
You knew your audience.
Yeah, man, that's it. That's it. So we want to move into a different conversation, man. Listen to me. I know it's 11 o'clock, but it is what it is. I appreciate the people that are here, people that will be coming and leaving. Thank you for being here. We do have more, but the conversation has been so dope that you know what? You guys know me. I can go all day, right? I'm like Captain America with that one. So I can do this all day. So we do want to get into, because we spoke about it in the context earlier, just the previous stats was just about like American, in America, right? These stats. Well, we wanted to kind of take just a deeper perspective, on this as well, and talk about it from a Black and Brown podcast listener perspective too, because I think it's an important demographic that we want to talk about too. And so part of this is that U.S. podcast listenership roughly the same across racial and ethnic groups. Corey and I were like, when we saw this, we were both like, yo, this is crazy. And the stats around what people may say and put out there in the ethos or whatever to actually what is actually, kind of being, researched and reported as it relates to Black and brown people, with podcasts. So I want to say this. So to a lot of the podcasters and live streamers and people out there are Black, one of the things oh man, our people don't listen to it. Don't listen to our stuff. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. I would even say that this is probably even on the lower side. I would think this is even on the lower side. Corey, what were your thoughts when you saw this, and from a stat standpoint?
I was surprised. I was happy to see it. I mean, I knew it was going to happen eventually, because I remember I used to look at the Edison research stuff year after year, and I don't know, maybe they have different metrics or different questions they asked this, but I remember there was such a huge gap on their counterparts in Black and Latino listenership. Black Latino listenership were kind of even that years switch forth, like 13, 16, 15%, like that, those kind of numbers. But to see this, and it's also really good you to see the Hispanic and Asian listenership go up, especially the Asian, because we don't really hear them that group of people talked about a lot in this space.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
These numbers, the way they are, just shows you, like, it's like, one, podcasting is getting into new market. Well, this is the US, but I think with COVID helped with all of this, right? It helped expose all of these different groups and close the gap. So I'm happy to see that, and we can no longer keep saying, well, our people don't listen to podcasts, because the numbers are here. It shows us that we're right neck and neck with most of the other communities that listen to podcasts.
Yeah, and I when I saw this, I also thought about the spending power in the Black community is massive, and so I think being able to utilize podcasting to grow the kind of perspective of things that are taking place in the Black community, but also from a marketing standpoint, where we have seen different podcasts, $1 million game, right, blowing up and doing just amazing things and getting these big contracts. But it's not so much just the contracts; it's the advertising that's associated with the contracts because of the demographics that people are actually listening to. So I think we also have to think about it in that context. And so when we start to think about the growth and the balance that we're seeing in podcasting, I just think this number is going to grow even more. So that's why I feel like I actually think it's even a little lower as well too. But that's just my own thought on that one.
That goes to the question we were talking about yesterday when we were talking. And you mentioned earlier, who are they asking these questions to?
Yeah.
Right. Black people tend to not participate in these types of when we hide it from bill collectors. So when those random numbers call you, you be like, I don't know who this is. I'm not picking up. But we don't, we don't always, I maybe done maybe 2 Pew Research
Yeah,
conversations over my life.
yeah,
I mean, research things, participating in them. So you don't know, like, so I do take it with a grain of salt. Also, one of the things I noticed on, and I think when we get further is like, when they mention Hispanic, because within
yeah,
the Hispanic space, there are, and that's why I don't like using that word too much because it identifies black. So it's kind of like, or it's that weird one. That's that weird demographic that
yeah, yeah.
you got you got to pay attention to. So where black might be
Mm,
identify themselves as Hispanic versus, they might consider black as well, but they consider themselves Hispanic first. So that's why I say you got to take some of this information with a grain of salt and just ask yourself who they were asking, what they were asking. But
agreed.
I like it because with the diversity issue in podcasting, from an advocacy point of view, you know, me, I get pushback in certain spaces sometimes, and certain things I say on my social media.
Mm,
This is another point to prove like this is not, you don't control this anymore,
mm,
right?
mm.
It's not the thing. You have to open up. You have to be more receptive to the different viewpoints, the different groups of people that are coming into this space.
Yeah, yeah. Nice, nice, nice. I want to offer promotions on channels. Oh, I'm going to get to that comment in a second here. Too, just want to make sure we say, everybody's getting heard. Matt's like, yeah, a 4-hour, yeah, is the limit, man. Yeah, I can't, man. I don't know. I was on with James the other night, and I don't know, my audio and everything started acting up or whatever. But I think James, it was on like for 3 hours or something like that. Spending power for us and is crazy. It is extremely crazy. So then James says, so we as creators have a duty to ensure the content we put out in the universe is of quality and rises above the noise. 100%, man, 100%. And then exceptional shape. I want to offer promotions on channels, viewers, bots. The price is lower than. Is this?
A spam.
I'm like, what is that? That is spam. Let me get that off the screen, man. Somebody, James, you were on Twitter? Is that Twitch?
They might have got that might be my side, yeah.
That's you. Because I wasn't on Twitch. I'm on Twitch. I was like, hold on for a second, man. Anyway, that's funny. That's funny. That's mad funny. That is crazy funny. That's funny. All right. All right, so we're gonna a couple more guys, couple more Black podcast listeners are more likely than those of other races and ethnic groups to listen in order to keep up with current events. Go ahead, Corey. I know you had something earlier yesterday you wanted to say on this one, if I'm not mistaken.
Look, I'm going to come from the Black Podcast Association point of view. I think if you're Black and you're in this space, this is important for you to understand about your listenership, especially if you're targeting Black audiences. We are look at the numbers. It shows you that we're out here more active and looking for content, looking for those topics that we want to hear. So it's an opportunity for Black podcasters, especially, to find lanes to create content for those audiences that are looking. I have a cold, y'all. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But to stay up to date about current events, we're more active in that space. If you look at these stats, right, we want to learn more. We're looking for encouragement, inspiration, hear other people's opinions. And then I think the biggest one I think yesterday I said was for entertainment, right? You see, we're at the bottom rung.
Yeah.
Because we have this stereotype that Black people are only about entertainment when it comes to media. And here we show our Hispanic and white counterparts are looking for more podcasts and entertainment than we are as Black listeners. So, and that's what I always felt about podcasting. Can help dispel some of these stereotypes that we see typically in various communities.
Right.
And people like, no, we're not monolithic. We don't have these topics where we want to know what's going on in the world. We want to learn. We want to be able to hear different opinions. We're not so as conservative or maybe headstrong in our opinions as you may think they are. So, um, and to show that the other groups of people are just as equal as us in regards to this is also amazing to me with this stat.
Yeah, man. No, this stat right here. Hold on a second. Where am I going now? There we go. This one right here, man. I think you just said it better than anything that I can honestly even add to it, dude. I was just really encouraged to by this one. So I'll put it in that terms, in that I was really encouraged that to look at the to learn aspect, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the the entertainment piece, of course, that resonated with me as well. But the to learn one is probably one of the most I think under appreciated aspects that of why Black and brown people listen to a podcast. It's not just around the entertainment piece. It is around to learn. This is why Corey and I were talking yesterday in a space that you're going to hear Podcasters Lives talk more and more about, is that we're going to be talking more about the idea of the downloads versus listen time, right? Our goal is that we are gonna try our best to own the conversation. There's already people out there talking about it, bumper, things like that, but our focus is going to help you understand the importance of listening time, right? And the idea around listen time is like the longer people listen, the more that they consume, right? We've already defined it that downloads are the aspirational acquisition of knowledge, meaning that just because they download your podcast doesn't necessarily mean that they listen to it. We want to focus in on listening time because it is the acquisition of knowledge. They've actually listened to your podcast. And the longer they listen to your podcast, the better for you, the better for advertising. And so we are going to be focused in on this. And so the reason I wanted to say that is because when I think about the to learn number, the level of your content and your ability to switch subject matters and then bring people along for the ride within your content is going to be even more important because people want to learn, right? You may even shorten your podcast, whatever it is. But think about your podcast differently. The goal, once again, today, we got like one more to go to. Goal of today was to arm you with information. Now you actually have to make a decision on what it is that you want to do with this information that we're providing with you as well too. So anyway, I don't know you have anything else to say on that one too, Corey, but Black podcasters turn to many topics more frequently than listeners in other racial ethnic groups. So self-help, right? Entertainment and pop, sports, comedy. So this one kind of just kind of shows a little bit of differentiation around how we go back and we listen to certain things more frequently than other races out there. I don't know if you had anything to say on that one, Corey. We're gonna get to the last one.
For me, it was the history, politics, government, science one,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
the fact that you see it so close was for me a proud moment because typically I've always felt like those are the areas in our community where we don't focus on, and it leads to a lot of bad decisions politically and in the voting. But to show that it's so close to our other counterparts, especially our white counterparts, just shows me that there's growth that's happening in this space in regards to the content our people are looking for.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that we're, especially like the race, ethnicity, self-help, relationships, money, finance, even entertainment, pop, and culture, right?
Yeah.
Those are things that are religion, spirituality. Like these are all things that are part of our communities. They're part of the experience of being Black. So I'm not surprised to see this as the high percentages that they have on here in comparison to other groups. But it also shows you that our people out here, they're using podcasts to help themselves become better, to find content that's going to help them understand their experiences as well. So as a podcaster, this should show you opportunities for you to be able to create content to attract these listeners because we know that they're out here listening. And if you're a brand or you're looking for advertisers and sponsorship, it's up to you as a podcaster to figure out how to create the narrative to show,
Yeah.
to take data and show them, hey, here's why because the advertising in the black podcasting space is a little bit different than the generic way. And I constantly have these conversations with people about, like, we don't do the 5,000 download minimum to, we don't, it's not how it works in our space with a lot of our podcasters. But there's opportunities for you here to figure out how you can attach yourself to this content, because
Yeah. Yeah.
these people, you see what they're looking for. So they're going to be more apt and more connected to that podcaster because they're looking for this information. They're looking for this content. So you might not, I may only have 100, 500 followers that download my podcast, but guess what? I might have a 30, 50% of them might buy your product compared to you dumping all this money someplace else with a 10%. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm throwing numbers out there, but it's more
Yeah.
complicated than that. But from a podcaster's point of view, it's an opportunity for you to figure out how to use this data to attract new listeners and advertisers or sponsors, if that's your goal to your content.
100%, man. And hopefully you guys, I know, we've been going for a while, but I think, those who started with us, you've seen that we've been trying to just kind of like build right on from a foundation of, knowledge, influence, understanding how important podcasting is out there, but then also understanding that, as we start to segue into listenership, and then also within the Black community, that there is opportunity out there for you to create content that is going to attract, advertisers, but more importantly, it's going to attract listeners, right? The one thing that we see too, and this kind of goes to, I know Corey has a something on here about, I'm just going to put it up here too, because he was talking about, some of the ratchetness, that he sees from, some of the podcasts, but, once you offer thought-provoking conversation, I think it's a different perspective, right? So you have to make sure, and Corey, and I know Corey can go all day about the quality of podcast content that people need to put out there in the world, and especially in the Black community, since that's kind of what we're talking about, is you have to make sure that you structure it properly. If there's one thing that I can say is that I know Black Podcast Association is strongly, for making sure that as a Black and brown podcaster that you're putting out, quality content so that you can take advantage of some of these stats. I think we got one more. I think this is the last one. Black listeners turn to news podcasts more than white and Hispanics. So this is interesting. This is interesting because one of the last ones we looked at where people get their news from, right? And we start talking about echo chambers and all these other things like that too, right? So I think this one has relevance to kind of further that conversation around where people are going to actually get their information. Good, bad, or indifferent, podcasts are where people are going to get that information. What are your thoughts on this one, Corey?
I think it's the convenience, right? You don't have to. It's on demand.
Yeah.
On demand. Like if I watch a news channel on cable, I have to go through their cycle, right, to get to the content. And they might talk about it once and you'll never see it again. Whereas podcasts, I can go back and go back and listen to it. But I think also I could be wrong. I don't speak for all Black people. I know me paying attention to the news and know what's going on, because a lot of it does have an effect on my life, right? If there's policy changes going on in the government, it hits people of color communities harder than it does the trickle down effect. So I want to be on the know. I want to know what's going on in the world. But I think the podcast option for is, I don't listen to a lot of news, so I can't tell you the formats, but I'm going to assume for some of what I know, it's control. It's especially what I think one of the stats said. The summary of the news, right?
Yes.
You want to know what's going on. You don't have time to sit down and you have your life, your work, and your family balance. You don't have time to sit here and go through a whole 15-minute segment on a news topic. Somebody summarizes it. Cool. Okay, I know what's going on. That I think that helps a lot too. But it was interesting to see that we do it more than other groups of people.
Yeah.
for me to really answer the question, I got to know what type of news is it and stuff like that. But it
Yeah.
just shows that we are connected, and we are well, we can tend to a lot of times be more well informed than other groups, right?
Mm,
Um,
mm.
and than about what's going on in the world as well. So I just like seeing these stats because it dispels a lot of stereotypes of just the generic aspects of Black Americans in America, Black people in America. And
Yeah.
even my own, sometimes you get well, what that comment said about, like, you see the ratchetness and all that stuff. Sometimes we forget these algorithms. It's not just the content you consume, but like if it's a social media, friends and people, it's also bringing in their preferences as well.
Yeah.
My friend and I, my good friends and I, we still do it to this day with our YouTube channels. I worked very hard to curate my YouTube premium channel, right? I wanted to show the content that I wanted to show. Every
Right.
once in a while, I'll find a ratchet video and shoot it to my friend because I know it messes up his algorithm, and he'll do it to me. And then, then your whole thing is thrown off. And we got to remember this stuff. So when we see, like, unfortunately, like, especially with like TikTok, you watch one video, all of a sudden it just keeps giving you the
Yeah.
same video, and that's why sometimes we look at the world from like we're in our own little circle, and that's the echo chamber part. So I try not to, I'm vocal about what I call trash content, and especially in certain spaces in the Black community that is popular. And a lot of times I think that's what people, they see somebody get success, because I saw that in the music industry. Somebody gets
Yeah.
success, everybody
Yeah.
wants to copy
Yeah.
and try to get
Yes.
that pie, instead of saying what angle can I go, with this. So it's just, I like seeing this because it just dispels a lot of the views, and it gives us an opportunity, like with the BPA, to have these conversations and say, let's change the perspective. Let's look at things from a different viewpoint, and let's figure out how we can all become successful with this data, and do the best that we can do.
100%. And guys, I say guys in general, but guys and gals, if you have any last comments or questions or something like that you want to answer, and you want us to answer, please make sure you go ahead and put it in the comments, because there's a little bit of a delay, of course, between the time that you guys send something in here and we actually look at it. Raphael talks about the tuning into to radio. I mean, I grew up in that era of, like, standing by the radio waiting for a different program to kind of come on. I also think about it in the context of, like, growing up, when even with TV there were certain shows that would come on at a certain time. I'm just it could the Huxtables and Different World, and even like I even started liking Cheers and all these other shows or whatever too, and they would come on at a very specific time, and I would find myself stopping what I was doing to go and watch these shows. So I think when you start to think about, there for me there were habits of listening to shows and liking that experience of the radio. That's probably one of the reasons I fell in love with broadcasting and podcasting, because I grew up in that era of radio, and people, like, Friday nights, the whole family, like, listening to the radio for a show or whatever too. So there is some credence to what you're talking about, buddy.
I remember, like, you was in New York, right?
Yeah.
Rap would only play on Kiss FM from 8 to 11 on a Friday night. You know what I'm saying? Like, you catch Red Alert. That was the only time you could hear rap on there. You had to
Mr.
wait. Or,
Magic.
Magic, Tristan Barbito. I remember the first time I heard It Ain't Hard to Tell was like 3:00 in the morning on a school night.
Yeah.
I stayed up. I stayed, Protect Your Neck, all those different things. I had to stay up on a school night to catch it and record it so that I could listen to it on my way to school. So, like, I think the older generations, we do kind of tend to, like, see, like what you're saying. Like, I remember being able to stay up late to watch The Cosby Show. My mom would let us stay up late.
Yeah.
And it came on like 8:00, but you're like 6, 7 years old, 8 years old.
Yeah.
We was in bed at 7:30. My mom's like, you gotta go to bed this morning. So, that was important. But to have everything on demand now, it's like it's convenient.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does. It makes yes, I'm old. you just as old. Corey's not as old as we are, but he getting up there,
I
man.
drink a lot of water. My skin is nice.
He just
Back on track.
He's freshly shaved and everything, man. Looking
That's
all
all we need.
looking all that.
All the grays are gone right now.
Yeah, you were looking rough yesterday, man. Well, we both were. I had my glasses on and all other types of stuff, man. So we were both in like, work at home mode. We had to get fresh for the live stream. Man, Corey, dude, I appreciate. I don't like this one. I like this one. I appreciate you so much, man. For coming here. I know this. We were going back and forth. We're trying to figure out like the whole black podcaster listener stats and stuff like that a while ago, and then I saw the Pew report. I was like, yo, I gotta get my man on here so we can make sure we talk about it, because I know you have some really good perspective and opinions on some of the stats, and I think the biggest thing, man, that I appreciate about you is that you're always open to conversation and dialogue about podcasting and how to help people think about podcasting differently for their benefit, not for just the benefit of Black Podcasters Association, right? But for the benefit of the actual podcaster, because if you do that, then we can continue to grow the industry, man. Give people some some word of advice, man, or some perspective, from all the stats that we listen to. Just kind of summarize some of your thoughts, and then give some people some stuff to do.
Man, just throwing me on the spot. I wasn't prepared for this part.
Of course.
Some words of encouragement. Just keep trying to make yourself, keep doing better. Like, I take what I learned in programming. You constantly want to write better code. You keep iterating, keep looking for places to improve your content. Be open to feedback, good, positive, negative, whatever. Be open to the feedback. You gotta learn to discern the trolling from bad feedback, but keep trying. The industry is still moving forward. We have new markets opening up, in Africa and Latin America, Central South America, out in the Asian communities and stuff. So it's going to be an opportunity for you to reach even more broader audiences. Not to be egotistical, like as an American, but since we kind of established it, those people are going to be looking towards us. So we do have a responsibility, if you're really serious about moving the industry forward and putting out great content, to show them like, hey, encourage them to step their game up, but also to do it in their own voice as well. So I'm like, I'm very supportive of that, of those communities as well. In this, we need more companies to do this type of research. So it's up to us as people in the industry to keep pushing and keep screaming at the top of our lungs. We need more research. We need more research.
Yeah.
It is also important for us when we get this data to challenge it, ask the hard questions, put it out there. Like, someone shout out to Carrie Ann of Breadfruit Media. I remember when we did the Black Podcast Listeners Report, she was like, well, what about, she's like, I hear about the Black side, but what about the Caribbean side? Because it's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Look at these statistics. We have to take that into consideration as well, as how people identify and where they come from regionally, because the Caribbean community in America is a part of the U.S. or listenership. But how does that reflect? So,
yeah,
I guess that's what I'll say on that part. But anything else? What was the other part of your question?
Yeah, whatever. Speaking of trolls, this is the biggest troll right here. Don't hate on my man Holland. And don't hate on Holland. He is a beast. Y'all knew he was going to be a beast when he came to the league, and he's in beast mode, and we are in beast mode. What I'm talking about, guys, is we're talking about the Premier League soccer. We call it football. Raphael and I call it football because the rest of the world calls it football. We only call it soccer here in America. Yeah, soccer. I call it football, man. So I am a football purist and a podcast purist. So I call it football. And here's the crazy part. Here's the funny part, man. So when I made the decision to do these like on a Saturday, right? I was like, man, it's gonna be cutting into my football time. And the crazy part, and man, I don't know if it's God or not. It probably ain't God. God's like, no, got nothing to do with this, Steve. But every game has been either like 7:30 or like 11:30 or 12 o'clock since I started. So I have actually been able to like do this and then still watch my games. Like it's been or it's been on a Sunday. So
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord.
Look at God. Look at that.
Look at God helping Steve out, maybe so he can watch his games, so he can educate the people on Podcasts Live on the training Saturdays. Oh man, yo, no, I appreciate you, dude. I appreciate you, and then for the road.
I said, the bridge is over, the bridge is over. Bye-bye. The bridge is over, the
What
bridge
day?
is over. Hey, hey, hey.
There we go. I had to get that last one in.
Yeah, but just remember where the stars are born. That's what I'm gonna say.
Stars.
Hip hop royal.
Hip-hop. Yeah. It's all good. It's all good, man. Well, hang on, Corey. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody and then chat with you and stay there for a sec. Man, oh man, I hope you guys got something out of it. I know we went long, but you know what? That's a live streaming for you. And we wanted to get the content out there. We wanted to make sure that, you as a podcaster, even as a live streamer, listening to this information, that we were once again arming you with data, arming you with information so that you can make your own decision on where you are and what it is that you want to do with your content, and how you want to approach your podcast or your live stream. The information that we provide is solely as a tool to help you become better. These Saturday trainings are exactly for that. We take a topic and we go deep, we go broad, and we make sure that we provide content that's going to give you something to think about and give you something to do on a Saturday. Love doing this. We're super excited. It's been growing by leaps and bounds. My only other ask is that you share not just these live streams, right? But you share some of our content with other people. The best thing that you can do to help us grow is to share this information with other people who may be listening or thinking about it. We do this every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, rain or shine, whatever it may be. We're stoked that you are here. Thank you so much. We want you to enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Have fun, and we'll talk to you soon. God bless.